about what Cosby's representative called, quote, agitators, end quote. As a result of these events, I filed a lawsuit on November 18th, 2015 in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia, Atlanta Division, against Cobb County, Georgia, and the Cobb Marietta Coliseum and Exhibit Hall Authority, alleging that my First Amendment rights and due process rights and the rights of other Bill Cosby protesters were violated when we were denied the right to view and listen to Mr. Cosby's performance without justification or explanation, wholly on account of our viewpoints about Mr. Cosby. I was seeking a court order which enjoined the defendants from carrying out the center's viewpoint-based censorship admissions policy. Today, we're able to announce a successful settlement of this case. In the settlement, the defendants agreed to a consent order which states in part, quote, that so long as a person does not pose an immediate and objective threat to the safety of others, any member of the public holding a ticket for the listed public performance at the center may attend the show. That in certain circumstances the authority can deny entry to a person if it objectively appears that the person imminently will disrupt the performance. A person who states, quote, I will not disrupt the performance, end quote, for example, is not someone who can be objectively determined as such a threat. A policy of allowing public performers discretion to exclude private citizens on any or no basis is not narrowly tailored to achieve any legitimate governmental interest in protecting the performer's right to speak. That the authority will not delegate to a performer the right to ban people from attending public performances in the center. That the authority will enter into a consent order to be in effect for 1 year, subsequent to its effective date, end quote. And that's right out of the consent order, which, by the way, was signed by the federal judge today. The defendants have agreed that the consent order will be an order of the federal court. That means that if it is not complied with in accordance with the terms of the settlement, that I could seek to hold the defendants in contempt of court. In addition, Cobb Marietta Coliseum and Exhibit Hall Authority agreed to pay $40,000 for my damages, attorney's fees, and costs. This extremely successful outcome would not have been possible without the outstanding legal advocacy of Georgia civil rights attorney Carrie Wiggins, who is here with me today. Mr. Wiggins, who represented me in this matter, recognized the importance of this case and these issues as soon as I contacted him. He knew the government had no right to punish me or other protesters by excluding us from the Bill Cosby Far From Finished show solely on account of our expressed viewpoint about Mr. Cosby. In other words, he agreed that my constitutional right to free speech was violated when I was refused admission to the Bill Cosby Far From Finished show, when I had a ticket and indicated that I would not disrupt it. I'm very grateful for Mr. Wiggins' excellent representation of me, which led to this successful outcome. With this settlement, we have achieved a victory not only for me, but also for other protesters who wish to exercise their right of free speech about other performers in the future. Government may not delegate to Bill Cosby or any other performer the right to ban ticket holders from attending a public performance at the Cobb Energy Center simply because the performer does not like the viewpoint of the ticket holders' free speech. I am very glad that we have achieved everything that we have sought to do when we filed this lawsuit. And I'm pleased that we have achieved a result that will protect others in the exercise of their free speech in the future. And before we hear from Mr. Wiggins, this is a copy of the consent order that was signed today by the federal judge. And he signed it, actually this morning, and that's the Honorable Judge Timothy C. Batten, Sr., who is the judge of the United States District Court for the Northern District of Georgia. So it is now a court order. In other words, the settlement agreement has been reduced to and made a court order, and it must not be violated. Mr. Wiggins.
Sure. Thank you, Gloria. Thank you all for being here. Like my client, Ms. Gloria Allred, I am very pleased with the outcome of this case. Working for and with Ms. Allred has been both an education and a delight. As a civil rights attorney, I am drawn to helping those who are not getting a fair shake from a more powerful player. I cannot name a living civil rights attorney who has achieved more success in vindicating the civil rights of individuals than Gloria. It has been my honor to work for her. I want to thank the Cobb Energy Center, its executives, its attorneys, for their professionalism in resolving this case. I truly mean that. I am confident that the result we achieved is good for all parties, meaning Ms. Allred and the Cobb Energy Center. The result, in fact, is one that has the best interests of all citizens in mind. Thank you.
And I'm happy to answer any questions about this or anything else.
Gloria,
Yes, Rodney.
How many protesters tried to get into the... Did you know how many people tried to get in and didn't get in besides you?
There were others. Do you know the number?
How many were on the list? They had a list. I saw
They did have a list.
There were roughly 77 to 80 names on the list.
You want to move over to the...
Sure. I think there were almost 80 names on the list with pictures.
Right.
And then I think that less than a dozen were turned away, tried to get in and were turned away.
One of them was a Cosby accuser, and she was with me at the time.
Right.
She was my client. Of course, there's also a recording that was done by the police of my conversation with the police officer as he told me that I would not be allowed to enter. And we were able to obtain that, and we have that. We played that at the press conference when we filed the lawsuit, but we have it again. If anybody wants to hear it, we'll be able to make that available to you. But it confirms everything that I said about being denied entry and threatened with being arrested for criminal trespass if I tried to go in. And that it was because my name was on the list.
Through the lawsuit or the night of the incident, did Cobb County offer an explanation on why that would be doable in the first place since you got a ticket?
Carrie, since...
The short answer is no. She was on the list. She was not going to pass go. That's it. And through our investigation, we unearthed why that was so. Essentially, the program was that the Energy Center was delegating to the performers the right to pick who can come in and who has to stay out.
Yeah. And, you know, for example, we have an email. There were emails from Mr. Cosby's representatives to the police and then asking for phone calls and with security and police and so forth, back and forth. And it indicated that they were concerned about agitators and that they had been monitoring social media. So I guess if I'm called an agitator, I mean, that's like not the worst thing I've ever been called. I'm happy to be called that. I do agitate against injustice and on behalf of free speech and constitutional rights. I've been doing that for 40 years as a lawyer.
With your 33 plaintiffs, how do you feel about how the Cosby case is progressing?
I don't actually represent 33 plaintiffs. I represent 33 accusers of Mr. Cosby. One of those accusers is Judy Huth, and we are litigating a civil lawsuit on her behalf. So she is a plaintiff, and that lawsuit, which is currently pending in Los Angeles County Superior Court, alleges that Ms. Huth was 15 years old when she became the victim of sexual misconduct by Mr. Cosby. So it's an allegation of child sexual abuse, and of all the lawsuits against Mr. Cosby, we're the only ones to have been permitted to have taken his deposition, which we did. And that's under a protective order, however, so I'm not at liberty to say what he said under oath in that deposition. We're the only ones who have been able to take it since he provided his deposition in the Andrea Constant civil case, which was settled. And then now Ms. Constant, of course, is the alleged victim in the criminal case now pending in Pennsylvania. We have also made a motion to compel a second deposition of Mr. Cosby. And the court, over Mr. Cosby's attorney's objection, did order that Mr. Cosby must appear for a second deposition in our case on behalf of Ms. Huth. However, the court has stayed the taking of the second deposition until the conclusion of the criminal case. Judge Neal in Pennsylvania just 2 days ago set a trial date for the criminal case for June 2017. We're going to be back to court on our case in LA on September 20th this year, basically to give the court a status report and update on our case. And we are vigorously litigating the case against Mr. Cosby. We've taken a number of depositions to date.
Do you feel that the case